To do this, Cullimore needs to understand the rusticles' diet.
Okay, and why are you different?
Well, because these...
He wants to know what types of steel the rusticles prefer to eat.
We've got a really tough steel. We've got a very strong steel. We have a mild steel. We have steels that have been twisted and bent and tempered and burnt and hammered. And what we want to do is see whether the way that we've treated the steel affects the way the rusticles first grab onto the steel.
With a break in the weather, Cullimore dives to the wreck to deploy his experiments on Titanic's stern.
I believe we're looking at the collapsed bridge wing.
When he surfaces, Cullimore also uses Magellan to place experiments on Titanic's bow.
Okay, let's see what I can do here.
Through his work, Cullimore has already calculated that nearly 20% of the bow section has been devoured by the rusticles. Today, he's refining those estimates, and the rate of decay is alarming.
When you look at the Titanic today, I would say that the rusticles are removing 0.1 of a ton of iron from the steel every day. And so it's only going to be the matter of possibly 90 years before the Titanic biologically implodes, collapses into itself, and eventually simply becomes an iron ore deposit on the floor of the ocean. And there's an equal number in the
For biologist Roy Cullimore, expeditions like this are critical.
When there's no movement, like in Nautil, when
The rusticles are destroying evidence of Titanic's disaster, just as we're beginning to understand her story. For Titanic, time is running out. Through the work of Paul Mathias, the world is getting its most complete view yet of the Titanic wreck site. A mosaic of Titanic that will live on for generations to come. For the first time, we can see a complete overview of Titanic's bow and stern. Titanic's bow can be studied as if the blackness of the North Atlantic had been removed. The destruction of Titanic's stern is catastrophic. It's almost unrecognizable.
The mosaics provide the overview and the relativity within the wreckage.
The stern itself hidden by a flapped over piece of deck.
If you look at them as an overall picture, they can be very beautiful.
Now this is actually part of the guts of the crane.
If you went down there in a submersible and you looked out the window, you would never see that.
The extent of the damage, I think, is visible.
It's totally artificial, but if you took the water away, that's what you would see.
The thing you see here that you don't see elsewhere on the ship is the side shell.
For the investigation, the photo mosaics are a breakthrough,
Life rails anywhere on the stern.
That's right.
a great asset as the team combs through the wreckage to reconstruct the disaster. So far, the investigators have made some remarkable discoveries. They now believe that when Titanic grazed the iceberg, some of her rivets gave way, creating a thin opening in the ship's side. As she sinks, the bow section starts to crack. Titanic's stern rises. The structure suffers tremendous strain. Despite the apparent strength of her steel, Titanic's midsection crumbles. Titanic, however, does not break apart until the vessel is completely submerged. For a short period, she's held together by her keel and hull bottom. Still, investigators want to know the rest of the bow story. How fast did the bow fall as it plunged 2.5 miles into the abyss?
There is, of course, a lot of argument within professional circles about how fast a ship or parts of a ship are going to go down. Some would say that it would go down slowly, others say it will go down fast, it will drop like a rock. These are things that we don't know yet.
Starting at the top, we have the famous rails, of course, around.
To Williams and the
foredeck.
team, the photo mosaic provides some very clear indications of the bow's speed.
Windlasses. The hatch here.
The structure is remarkably intact, which suggests its trip to the bottom may have been very slow.
This can give us some guidance as to the speed of descent.
If we look at the mosaic, what we see is a fairly clean structure. It's lost its funnels, the mast has been driven down.
And also the mast.
But there are some small pieces on the deck, which, if it had been traveling very fast, we would have expected to have been blown away by the force of the water.
Slow down as quickly as the structure as it hit the seabed.
If the bow sank quickly, the team believes that her railings would have been torn away. But most of the railings remain intact. The bow cranes are also still in place. Another sign of a slow descent.
And the whole thing, when you look at the detail, is of smoothness, slowness.
The photo mosaic provides some clues about her speed.
Now this is like a torn pipe.
Now investigators would like to know how the bow actually plunged to the bottom.
We need to understand how it actually traveled to the seabed. Did it rotate? Did it tumble? Did it just glide, or did it even stall and go into a falling leaf type pattern?
Back at the wreck site, investigators are building a case for the bow's fate.
Yeah. This looks like it's overhanging a bit.
On the port side, they examine a series of unexplained 90-degree bends in the hull plating. It appears that when the bow suddenly hit the sea floor, the impact created the bends.
Let's move off to the right along the mud line if you could. Okay.
On the opposite side of the ship, there's a large hole near the mud line. It too appears to have been formed by a sudden stop.
The global damage of the ship coming in on an angle and striking the seafloor.
Bow first on the starboard side would tend to buckle it back.
That's still continuing. You can still see the upper reaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Given this